Welcome to a fantastic edition of Rebellion's educational series, looking at the age of the Dreadnought, Bismarck, Hood, Yamato, Iowa, with renowned historian and author Stefan Draminski, whose illustrations also are fantastic too, by the way. Stefan, thank you so much for coming on today.
Hello, and thank you too for having me here.
So this is an absolute thrill for me. Completely obsessed with dreadnoughts and naval maritime history. So let's start with the HMS Dreadnought, and why is she so important?
Well, the HMS Dreadnought was a milestone in naval engineering. Perhaps from the technical point of view, one of the most important ships in history. So there are basically two reasons why she is that important. One reason is her armament, and the second is the propulsion. So the armament was designed, or the armament layout was designed to conform with the all big gun rule. That means that the designers of Dreadnought wanted to have a battleship with a large number of big guns, because the ships that came before the Dreadnought, they usually had only a handful, like 4 big guns, and a mass of smaller caliber guns with varying size, and some of them put in casemates, some in turrets. This complicated.
So is the big gun transition the most notable feature of the Dreadnought, or is it the mixture of big gun with fast battleship?
It's the mixture of the big gun and the propulsion. The big gun, the all big gun concept gave the advantage in the battlefield. It was easy to control the fire, and the fire was concentrated. So you had a large salvo, and this combined with the turbine propulsion instead of reciprocating engines that were used up to date. This gave the breakthrough for the Dreadnought. So basically, in one moment, when the Dreadnought was completed, all other battleships became obsolete. So this was a good, from one side, it was the good thing for the British, because they had the lead in the engineering race. But on the other hand, they also had the largest number of old pre-dreadnoughts that instantly had to be replaced.
Why is it that the British had such a control of the seas in World War I? The Germans built up quite a navy, but they were never able to use it much.
Yes, well, the numerical superiority was always on the side of the British, but it is true that indeed the Hochseeflotte, the German high seas fleet in the First World War, was quite impressive too. But the fact that they had to operate from Germany through the North Sea put them in a disadvantage at the very start.
Well, that was another disadvantage for probably the world's most famous battleship, the Bismarck, which, despite only having really a 9-month service history, is probably the first battleship as a child you're taught, even in the United States. So let's talk about Bismarck versus HMS Hood, who was the most glorious battleship that the British had as well in World War II.
Yes, in fact, at that time of the engagement between the Hood and the Bismarck, Hood was the most recognizable warship in the world, and also had the and also was the largest battleship in the world for for some 20 years in the interwar period. So
yes, as a child, as an American child, we were assigned HMS Hood versus Bismarck, probably the greatest prize fight in military history. And that was something that was cemented into our little heads, that what happened there kind of meant everything to battleship history.
yes, that is true. However, the engineering and design of battleships had drastically changed between the time when Hood was built and when Bismarck was built. Hood was in fact not a real battleship, but a battle cruiser built within the concept that speed is the most important feature, and speed will give you will give you the protection against fire from enemy battleships. And already at the Battle of Jutland in the First World War, it turned out that this concept was a mistake. The British lost 3 battle cruisers in a very short time, all of them exploding, and they did realize that Hood was already being built and was already designed, that the design was fatally flawed, and they tried to fix it. They added more horizontal armor, but since the ship was in a design that is ready, you cannot alter really a lot. So at the time of the engagement between Hood and Bismarck, Bismarck had the advantage, a huge technological advantage.
Do you think that it was a lucky bullet in any way, or do you think it was just expected for Bismarck to win?
Well, I believe that it is only a bit lucky for the Germans and unexpected that she managed to score the fatal hit so soon in the battle. It was something like only five minutes between the start of the battle and the fatal salvo for Hood. So, but such a hit that would ignite her magazines, it was expected. In fact, Admiral Holland, who was in command of the British task force, he deliberately tried to cut the range as fast as possible, because he knew that Hood would be very vulnerable to plunging fire from Bismarck. That is the fire that penetrates decks from a larger distance, and he struggled to close the distance as soon as possible, but it was not fast enough.
Very, very interesting. And then how did Bismarck compare to Yamato, for instance?
Well, Yamato was obviously a much bigger ship, so it instantly puts Yamato in a different category. She had
and Yamato had greater range than Bismarck, yes?
Yes, Yamato was actually capable of fire beyond the horizon, and the range of Bismarck guns was much shorter. The other thing is that Bismarck was designed to fight at shorter ranges of in the North Atlantic, while Yamato was designed to outrange the potential American enemies and to fire from as far as possible in order to be able to inflict damage while staying out of the range of American ships.
Did the Japanese waste her during World War II?
Well, you could say that because building Yamato and her sister Musashi, along with the third ship Shinano that was ultimately rebuilt as a carrier, well, that was really a lot of effort. You could build many other ships for the price, for the money and the time that it took to build Yamato and Musashi. They were so huge that even the dockyards where they were built, they had to be modified. The Japanese had to build a special ship for transferring the big guns. So it was really a huge effort. Had they realized that at that time that it was the aircraft carrier that would decide the fate of the battles of Pacific War, I think they would probably change the concept.
So do you believe that Yamato was more powerful than the Iowa class ships?
Well, if you had an actual duel between the Iowa and Yamato, the outcome would not be well. I wouldn't bet much money on either side, but the advantage was on the side of the Iowa. Well, first of all, Iowa had much superior speed, over 6 knots over the maximum speed of Yamato. That is really a huge difference, and this meant that the commander of Iowa could choose the conditions of the battle, or could even choose to not to fight at all. With such a speed advantage of Iowa, it would be impossible for Yamato, for example, to keep on a range where Yamato could inflict damage on Iowa and not in the other in the other way. So and Iowa was also superior in other respects. For instance, the superior fire control. The American radars, fire control radars from 1944 and 45 were state of the art, the best in the world, and capable. And Iowa was capable of blind fire. While
in Jutland, if the British had better fire control, would they not have lost so many ships, or were they just massive hits that were irrelevant to fire control?
Well, at Jutland, I believe that it is not the fire control that made the difference, but it's the way that the ships were handled. The crews of the turrets should have handled the ammunition and the charges in a different way, and that could have saved them from the catastrophe that happened to the 3 battle cruisers.
Do you fault Beatty for not being more in communication with Jellicoe during the battle?
Yes, I think it was a huge factor. The lack of communication between the 2 commanders, and especially Beatty not reporting to Jellicoe and keeping him in the dark as to his intentions and what was really happening at the start of the battle. That was something that was very important. Even in the aftermath of the battle, BT was trying to hide the impact that this behavior had on the battle.
Yeah, despite this, BD received promotions. So anyway,
Yes.
there's still
Yeah.
there's still great debate. BD still has many defenders.
Yeah, he was a man with a very good PR, you could say. So,
Good point. Well, speaking of PR, who do you feel won the Battle of Jutland?
it's really hard to answer this question. On one hand, the British lost many ships, particularly the 3 battle cruisers, and that was very painful. German losses were marginal when you compare it, and the British also had large losses in as to when you count the number of deaths. But on the other hand, it was the British that kept the high seas fleet out within the North Sea. So
the British held their ground. Yes.
Yeah, but after Jutland, the German never put any large attempt to leave the bases. So there is. I remember something about Jellicoe. There is a saying that he was during the First World War, he was practically the only man who could lose the war within one day, but he didn't, because the ultimate outcome of the battle was that the British kept the superiority in the North Sea. So that is what they were for.
Now, the strategic outcome of Jutland was key, and what happened was the British kept the ground. So one can say then the British won. This was a fantastic conversation, Stefan, and you have so many great books on our site. We'll have all of them listed for our viewers to check out and consider purchasing on Amazon. And tell us, do you have any future books in mind that you'd love to talk about?
Yes, I actually have one big project in progress. It is not about a battleship. It is about an aircraft carrier. The carrier Hiryu, the one of the 4 that were sunk at Midway. And my book about this carrier should be released sometime next year. I hope that it will be out just before the 80th anniversary of the Midway battle.
Well, please let me know when it comes out so we can have you back on, and maybe we'll bring someone from the Navy for a nice Battle of Midway discussion. We love the Battle of Midway. We put out a long piece on it. So, okay. Stefan, yeah, no, that'd be great. I look forward to talking with you again, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, and you too. Bye-bye.